This is the TRU Leader Podcast. Today, our special guest is Cathy Carroll. We talk about her new book, Hug of War, How to Lead a Family Business with Both Love and Logic. Cathy shines a light on polarities in family businesses that every leader can learn from, so stay tuned.
Have you ever looked at successful leaders and wondered, how do they manage it all? In a world where stress seems like the constant backdrop of your life, achieving a balance between professional excellence and personal fulfillment can feel a little elusive. But what if we told you that the very stress you're battling could be the key to unlocking levels of success you've only imagined? We're inviting you to our free webinar, From Stress to Success, the formula for leaders to excel professionally and personally. This isn't just another webinar filled with generic advice. We're diving into the secret formula that top leaders use to not only manage stress, but to harness it as a catalyst for professional growth, resilience, and personal satisfaction. Here's why you can't afford to miss this webinar. First of all, you're going to discover cutting-edge strategies. So you're going to learn the proven techniques to turn stress into a powerful ally. You're also going to hear some real-life success stories. So you're going to get inspired by leaders who have walked the path from stress to success, and you're going to receive the secret formula for creating harmony between your professional and personal life. So why this webinar and why now? Because in a world that's constantly demanding more from leaders like you, simply coping with stress isn't enough. It's time to transform that stress into a tool that propels you towards success. So whether you're an emerging leader, a seasoned executive, or a leader passionate about personal and professional growth, this webinar is your first step towards rewriting your story from stress to success. So click the link in the show notes and reserve your spot today. Welcome to the TRU Leader Podcast. I'm Dr. Tracy Christofferson.
And I'm Michelle Trosett.
We are life and business besties, leadership coaches and mentors, and polarity intelligence experts. We're the authors of Polarity Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership, and co-founders of Missing Logic.
We are here to help high-achieving leaders break through leadership norms that cause them suffering at work and home. If you're looking to elevate your leadership, increasing your productivity, effectiveness, and impact, and manage your health and well-being, spend quality time with those you love, and live your best life, then you are in the right place.
Our goal in this podcast is to equip you with new ways of thinking and practical and tactical strategies for succeeding at work and thriving in life. Think of this podcast as your weekly dose of personal and professional development so you can reach your full leadership potential, create a life you love, and be what we are calling a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable or true leader.
If you are ready to learn and laugh a little, let's get started. Hello, hello, hello. It's another episode of the TRU Leader Podcast with Michelle and Tracy.
Yep, here we are.
Yeah.
I'm here. You're here.
We're all here.
Of course we are. Showing up, as always. Delighted to be on the airwaves.
Yeah. You know, it's a privilege to be on the airwaves, and it's also a responsibility.
Ooh, that sounds like a polarity.
It is.
There you go. There you go. I'm starting right out with those polarities, folks, today.
Right. It's a privilege, but it's our responsibility to bring really awesome guests and topics to you listeners who we love with all of our hearts.
Yes. Yeah. We got a great interview today.
Yeah, we did.
It's really fun. It's really fun to talk with somebody who knows and understands polarities and has really developed an expertise in a very specific niche around polarities.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. She just wrote a book and we dove deep and we can't wait for you to listen to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, regardless of whether you have firsthand experience with this or not, I think we all experience it in some way, whether we're consumers from these businesses or we're working in these businesses, right?
Yeah.
It's going to touch you one way or the other. So we're going to let you find out what that's all about here. But let me introduce our guest, Cathy Carroll. And Cathy learned about family business leadership the best way you can, and that's by leading her family business. Nothing like,
the real thing.
Firsthand experience. So after a 20-year corporate career, she left United Airlines to lead her father's business and instantly recognized a difference between leadership in a family business and leadership in a large corporation, like night and day. She's the founder and president of Legacy Onward, Inc. Cathy is a family business leadership coach and author of The Hug of War, How to Lead a Family Business with Both Love and Logic. She also trains advisors serving in family enterprises as well as coaches who maintain their credential with the International Coaching Federation. Cathy herself earned certificates in both leadership coaching and executive facilitation at Georgetown University. She has an MBA at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business and a BA at Boston College. And without further ado, here's our interview with Cathy Carroll. Hi, Cathy. We're so excited to have you on the podcast today.
So happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's a delight to be with you both.
We've been looking forward to this for a while. And we also want to welcome you to the family of Polarity authors.
Thank you. That is an esteemed group. I feel privileged to be a part of it.
Well, it is. And you're making quite a wave, I think. So, just for our listeners, Cathy wrote the book, Hug of War, How to Lead a Family Business with Both Love and Logic. And very much needed, a very unique niche, family businesses. And so we're so excited to be here to talk to you about polarities and all that you've been learning around that and your book, and just super excited for you and your new book.
Thank you. Well, I'm super excited to speak with people who actually know what polarities are.
Yeah. Well, and I think we were excited to hear about your book because although we're not a true family business, you can't get much closer without being that. Between, Michelle and I have been friends and great colleagues and best buddies for over 40 years. Yeah. And our team members are family members, and then her husband owns a family business. So we got the whole family business thing energy going on here. And so it was great to read the book and learn a lot more about that. Even though we know polarities, it's always helpful to look at it through a little bit more focused polarity lens. So why don't we start with just you sharing a little bit about your journey, how this book even came to be?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a family business. I'm actually a third generation member of my grandfather's business. And then I saw a lot of drama, so I went corporate for 20 years. And then my father invited me back into the family business. I usually say I got sucked back in like it's a Godfather story. And I ran his business for a few years. And it was a very different leadership experience. And it was very hard for me to make sense of it. And there were some family dynamic issues in play. And upon reflection, there were quite a bit of polarities that were in play. So when I left my father's business, I started interviewing leaders to help me make sense of my experience, trying to understand what was really going on. And I'll give you some examples of how my father and I were on opposite ends of no end of polarities. But my father was really focused on spending. He loves to invest. And as a result, the businesses were not profitable. And so I brought in the lens of focusing on profits. He was focusing on investing. I was focusing on growing the profits. He's really gifted in marketing. He's got a real natural eye for visuals. And I was an operations and finance person. In fact, my first career out of college, I was a pension actuary. So I was very focused on analysis and numbers, which was a total compliment to him. But I didn't see it as a compliment. I saw him as being incomplete, singly focused. And I was convinced that I was right and he was wrong. He loved to disrupt. There was a time when every year we had to publish a catalog in time for the market. And every year they would send him a copy of the catalog for his approval. and they'd say, we need to get this approved in the next 2 days so that we can get it printed in time for the market. And he would just go through and slash and burn. This would have been his third or fourth review of it, but he just loved to disrupt and would put the team into a tailspin. So what did I do? I came in and I was all about stabilization. It was all about process and replication, and let's stabilize what felt to me like chaos, because he was, I think, in the overuse of disruption. He liked to hide information. I like to share information. He was command and control. I was a servant leader. We just couldn't have been more different. And I learned upon reflection that my whole motive was to prove that I was right and he was wrong, which is a big reason that we got in each other's way.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What a lived experience, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I can relate. We can relate, can't we? We're walking polarity, so we get it, right? We are so opposite. So, thank goodness we know about polarities.
Well, that's just it. Like, if
some days are easier than others.
Yeah. If I'd been able to hold our differences as polarities, I wouldn't have been so judgmental. I wouldn't have been so arrogant. I wouldn't have been so dismissive of him. Now, some of that energy came from childhood, injuries that I brought into the workplace. Which is a part of the challenge of a family business, right? We bring our lived histories with our family members into the adult versions of ourselves and into today's world. But if I had only understood that we were on opposite ends of polarity, I could have leveraged our unique strengths so much more powerfully and led to a much greater outcome than we did have.
Yeah. Yeah. And felt a lot less frustration. I'm sure, right?
You got that right.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the name of the book, and Hug of War. What a unique name. And tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. The Hug of War, it's funny. When I mention to people the title of the book, if they have family business background, they instantly have this embodied knowing, oh, yeah. And if I ask people, or if I mention it to people who don't have family business background, Hug of War, are you open to a different title? To me, it is absolutely the perfect title for this book, and I wouldn't change a single word, because the core thesis is that there is a unique polarity that family business leaders face, and they have two mindsets that are operating concurrently in their heads. One mindset's the business mindset, which values profits and competition and meritocracy, and the other values the family mindset, and it's driven by love, and it values fairness and sharing and unconditional belonging. And so Hug of War is the manifestation of that tension between these two opposing right answers. The hug is the family mindset, right? It's driven by emotion and love. And war is the business mindset. It's driven by reason and power. So Hug of War felt like the exact embodiment of this tension between these two mindsets. In addition, it rhymes with tug of war, which is the tug that happens in the leader's head when they have two right answers operating concurrently in their head. And it creates this cognitive dissonance in the leader's mind. But then it also creates tug of war in the family system, because you've got some members of the family who are making decisions with the family mindset and other members of the family making decisions with the business mindset. And they can only see their point of view. They can't see the fuller picture. And so they get stuck in these force on force battles with no winning, because they're both right. So the title felt absolutely right, and I just hope the rest of the book lives up to the title.
It does. I think it does. Well,
it's funny because I have shared your book with a couple of family businesses. Okay. And to your point, Cathy, right away they all go, what a great title, because there is this knowing of the tension that exists in family businesses. Well, I'll tell you, we love the way that you framed up the first 8 chapters that describe the classic problems that can happen in family businesses, such things as setting compensation levels, decision-making processes, dealing with conflict that might arise with the power dynamics of the family are different than the power dynamics of the business, leadership succession decisions, differences of opinions on payout dividends or reinvestment in the business are just several examples. And you also clearly shared the primary polarities that exist in each of these scenarios, which we thought was extremely helpful. But let's start with the first polarity, the first chapter, which you already mentioned. We think it could be, we always call things the mother polarity, like what's the big overarching polarity, or in this case, it could be the father polarity, depending on who's running the business. And that is the family mindset and business mindset, and framing that up as a polarity. And what are ways this polarity manifests itself in the family business? Like, how does it show up?
I'll give you the easiest example. You've got a brother-in-law who's working in the business. You're the CEO. Brother-in-law is not performing. The business mindset says, you fire your brother-in-law. It's that simple. He's not performing. The family mindset says, well, he's just, he's got a daughter with special needs and his expenses are getting really high. Mom wants me to give him a raise. Maybe I should just move him to a different area and give him a promotion so that, he's got his needs met, because he's family. You take care of family, right? A totally different right answer. Right. So you've got this duality of truths that are operating concurrently in the head of the leader. And it creates so much anguish, because the people in the family who are operating with the business mindset are frustrated that they're not getting the right business decision, because it's very clear from a business perspective that the brother-in-law needs to go. And then you've got other people in the family who are saying, how dare you threaten the livelihood of your sister's husband? That's just it's completely out of line from the family lens. So how do you make decisions in this duality of truths? And the polarity thinking is the answer. It is hard to hold the tension of this duality. And that's how polarities work. They are indestructible. This tension never goes away. And once you're able to see it as a polarity, you're able to hold the bigger truth. Now, the tricky thing about family businesses is, unlike most of the polarities we talk about, like structure and flexibility, or planned and opportunistic, which we may talk about later, those are polarities that live in nature, right? They just are ubiquitous in life. A family business isn't a natural polarity in that sense. You can have a family without a business, and you can have a business without a family. But if you have a family business, you are managing that tension between two truths at all times. And that's what makes it so incredibly challenging.
Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, I never thought about that before, that some are just natural and some, not everyone experiences that you do them by choice. But then when you do, it's almost like you have this incredible accountability to manage it, because there's so many stakeholders.
It's exactly right. And it gets ever more complex as the generations continue, right? So when you're a founder, you get to make all your decisions and nobody challenges you because you're the founder. Then when you have children and the children are in the leadership roles, then you're suddenly making decisions with consensus, right? You've got equal owners or maybe unequal owners, but you have maybe some majority shareholders, some minority shareholders. You've got lots more complexity. And then take it to the third generation, you've got cousins trying to make decisions who haven't grown up with the same set of values, right? Because they've got other people who've married into the family, and they've got maybe some different points of view, different values that are in play. And it just, every generation layers in more and more complexity.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Now, how can this polarity impact individuals that work in the business, but maybe not part of the family?
Yeah, I just so appreciate this question, because this can be one of the blindsiding elements of leading within a family business when you're a non-family executive. If you think it's going to operate like a business, it does not operate like a business. The family businesses have that second set of rules. The presence of the family mindset means that there's a second set of equally valid and important rules that they can't see. And what makes it really challenging is sometimes the family isn't honest about how they're making decisions, because they want to keep the family stuff family, right? Families tend to be private. They don't want to air their laundry with a bunch of employees. So the decisions that get made can be made in secret and be completely blindsiding to the non-family executives who are saying, what on earth is going on? This place is crazy town. It's like working in a twilight zone. And I'll give you an example, because this is actually a real example. There was a gentleman I worked with. He was the chief operating officer of a family business. And he worked for a matriarch CEO who had a substance abuse problem and hired a new head of sales. This new head of sales was a party, loved to party, woohoo, went all the time drinking. And the CEO's husband said, "Oh, no, we're not going to have this new head of marketing reporting to my wife. We have been working really hard on managing her substance abuse, and we don't need any extra temptations. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to elevate our son to be the president, and we're going to have this new head of sales report to our son, and our son will report to his mother." And so all of a sudden, Bibi, who had nothing to do with this, was the chief operating officer, started reporting to this new president, who was young, mid-30s, really smart, really talented, but not ready to be the president, and it was really premature. And so he felt like he got demoted, which just burned him up, that he was demoted, and now he had a layer between him and the CEO. And then on top of it, he was beside himself that he wasn't considered for the role. He had 15 years of experience on the son. And so why wasn't he considered as a candidate? In fact, he didn't even found out about it the same time all of the employees did. And he served on the board. So he couldn't understand what was going on and was livid about it. And it really undermined his performance at work. He just couldn't get over the emotional injury. And so 6 months later, they let him go. And he had no idea what hit him. It had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with the family mindset, making the decisions.
Yeah.
It was kind of that overemphasis on the family mindset, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also an example of the role of what I called in the book shadow influencers, which is a form of soft power. The husband of the CEO exercised enormous influence in that business, despite owning 0 shares and having 0 role in the business. But he drove a profoundly important outcome for that business because he was so focused on doing right by the family rules.
Well, it's so family is so powerful, right? Yeah. And I love how you talk to in the book. You in every chapter you kind of have a section, right, where you do a pro tip. Yeah. And I loved how you kind of talked about the amygdala, right, and that amygdala hijack and that emotional fight, flight, or freeze like response, right? Can you say a little bit about that?
Sure. I honestly think that leadership in a family business is so much more complex than leadership in a regular business because of this extra mindset that doesn't exist elsewhere. And it really benefits from emotional intelligence. The leaders who invest in building and strengthening their emotional intelligence are really well served. And I'm going to actually pivot into a topic that you recently talked about in your podcast, but adaptive leadership. And how I think leadership in a family business is really well served by the tenets of adaptive leadership. And thank you to Ron Heifetz for introducing that into the world. Because the complexities are profound. You've got not just the chaos that's happening in the business world, and you talked about the VUCA dynamics that are happening in the business, but then you've got all the complexities that are involved within a family system. And you've got a complex family system interacting with a complex business system. And I was a math major. I'm not sure if that results in exponential complexity, but it feels like it.
Seems like it should,
it
right?
Like it should. It feels like exponential complexity. And so in an environment where you've got so much going on, having a really keen understanding of your own emotions as this is unfolding, understanding how to respond or not respond to those emotions is profound. Having an interest and a desire to understand the emotions and the experiences of other people in the system, both the business system and the family system, can really lead to a much more, I'd say, creative, adaptive, inclusive, and impactful leadership style. That's so hard to do when you have the complexities that I mentioned earlier, especially within the family, and you've got all the generational complexity happening that I will just repeat. So a little bit of a long answer, but I think emotional intelligence is incredibly important in any business and profoundly important in a family business.
Yeah.
Well, because families are just emotions. It's all about the emotion piece, right? And decisions based on emotions and connections, and so and then I think too, having the emotional intelligence to understand where all that's coming from, but then also the polarity intelligence to understand the polarity that you're facing, right? The both and that dynamic again is different in a family owned business. I mean, all businesses have polarities, but some of these, right, and especially this one is specific to the business, the family-owned business. It's pretty profound. So, when we work with leaders, we really help them identify different polarities that they have to manage and work with, and then leverage over time. And a lot of them are leadership specific polarities, right, that they have to face as leaders. I mean, there's organizational polarities, there's personal polarities, but there's these leadership polarities also. And one that we work on with leaders, and that came up, I think, in your book as well, is the planned and opportunities polarity. So why don't we just have a little dialogue about that and unpack that a little bit, and tell us a little bit about your thoughts about family businesses and this particular leadership polarity. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah. First, I think I want to just thank you for asking this question, because it really sparked a lot of new thinking for me. And I want to highlight some of the really meaningful distinctions about family business before I even get into this tension between planned and action, or planned and opportunistic, I should say. So corporations that are publicly traded, their focus quite often is on quarterly results, right? They've got a bunch of people on Wall Street who are expecting certain numbers, certain metrics on a quarterly basis. So they tend to have a much more shorter term focus. The tenure of a CEO in a corporate, publicly traded company is something like 6 years. In a family business, the mindset is more about generations from now. So you're talking about a massively different orientation towards investment and long-term focus. Family businesses tend to have a lot of patient capital. That's why a lot of family businesses are in real estate. And they don't focus on quarterly profits unless they're public. There are some publicly traded family companies. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but the way people sometimes describe family businesses, there are a handful who technically are. But vast majority are privately held and are thinking about things from a much longer term focus. The second thing that I'll highlight is that because you've got this duality of domains, you've got this family domain, you've got this business domain. What we all know in business is that strategic planning is very helpful, and that's where we get all of the the value of planning, right? But then things happen, and you seize out. There are opportunities, like Cathy Carroll just showed up and said, "Hey, I wrote a book. Can I be in your podcast?" Right? Like, how do we? We didn't have Cathy wasn't in the plan for the fall, but is there an opportunity? Right? How could we seize this opportunity to bring in a polarity writer into our podcast? The family has those same dynamics. The family actually has planning that can be done with it, and it's really important to work on the family as much as it is to be in the family. We talk about working on the business and in the business. It's really important to talk about being in the family and working on the family. And there are there's a whole body of consulting practice regarding governance, which is how you make decisions, and succession in a family business, which is a very different beast than succession in a non-family business. And so the question, planned and opportunistic, actually operates in two different domains, right? Because you can have planning with your family. You can have really good governance, which morphs over time depending on the complexity of the family and the generation and things like that. But then you have opportunistic things. Here's an example of a classic one that's in the family mindset. After a while, a family will often craft a family employment policy, and it often stipulates the number of years you work outside of the family business before you join. It might even stipulate what education level you need to achieve before you join the family business. So let's say you've set it at 5 years of work outside of the family business and you need an MBA. Okay, great. That's the table stakes to work in the family business. Well, then someone marries someone who has 20 years of corporate experience and they're a CPA, not an MBA. Well, they have exactly the skill set that the company needs. Let's say they need some managerial accounting profitability analysis, product profitability analysis. And this person has exactly the skills that they need, but they're a member of the family because they married in, but they don't have an MBA. So do you say, all right, we have an opportunity here. Do we actually introduce some flexibility into our structure in order to allow us to seize the opportunity of this person being in the family business? So I thought those were some important distinctions to highlight before we even unpack this awesome tension in your world. Tell me, how are you guys addressing this planned and opportunistic tension?
She looks at me and smiles.
How are we doing that, Michelle?
Well, I think it is a tension that we're always doing. So I think we set our strategic plan, we work on it, and then sometimes we'll get someone knocking on our door or something presented to us where you just stop and pause and say, oh, it wasn't on our radar, but is this a really great opportunity? And you just have to stop and evaluate, and look at it from all different angles. But it is something I think as a business owner, we're always dealing with.
Yeah.
And we have connections. We've been in business for a long time. So we have different connections with different people. They may not be family, but they're longtime connections. And I think that's sometimes something that happens to us, like someone we've worked with before or some, that it's like, oh, is this an opportunity or is this going to take us off path? Like we're always trying to balance that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we always try to set probably some guardrails, what's within and what's without, because you can get, it's as much about saying no as it is about saying yes, right? So that's kind of one of our mantras, do less better and stay focused. And so it really depends on what realm the opportunity is coming from. And you never want to operate from FOMO. Oh, if we don't do this, we'll never have an opportunity to do it again, right?
Yeah,
and setting your own, really kind of setting our standards and our guardrails to say, this is what we're going to operate within. If it fits within here, right, then great. If it's outside of that, then it takes extra consideration to see what is the potential of it. Is it a timing issue? Those kinds of things. But it is all about having a plan, trying to work the plan, and then being opened as well. Because sometimes things come to you and it was unexpected, but it is totally the right thing to do, right? And you want to also be paying attention to how you're being guided in different directions and not closing off opportunities as well, right? In a way that would hurt you down the road. So it's just a fine balance, always to be thinking, but it's always about conversation and talking about it and, how does it fit within it, within our guardrails, so to speak.
Yeah, interesting. And I would imagine after 40 years of being friends and professional colleagues that you've had moments where you've had to work on your relationship as well. Just like, it's important for the family to work on the family. You've probably had moments where you've worked on the relationship. There's no relationship that lasts 40 years that doesn't have ups and downs, right?
Well, and I think it was really interesting is we didn't even really know we were a walking polarity until we started a business together.
Oh, fun.
Because we had worked together in a lot of different ways, but never as intensely in the development and the leading of a business. And that's when we really began to realize, as the tension was mounting, what is this about, right? And how that it was really about our opposite perspectives and points of view, preferences mostly. Sure. We both see the polarities, but it's really about your preference and where you operate from and just recognizing that. And so, we've had a lot of ups and downs, but once we kind of got, duh, right? This is a polarity that we're dealing with. And just really kind of leaning into that. So we both lean in a little more to the middle, right? Than being out on the extremes and just learning a lot. And well, we were leaders, but like you said, running a business and something that also a business that has family members in it, right? That just takes we were new entrepreneurs, new leaders in this way, new family dynamics, right? Just a lot of things to be unpacking and exploring and understanding as we've gone along, right? But I think,
definitely.
And like I said, we have some days are better than other days,
Sure.
but we're really getting to a much better place, so we're happy.
Well, you have to live it to
You do.
experience it. You can't even we started our business with the intention of bringing a mystic logic to the world, understanding polarities.
But it didn't happen overnight. But it was just this constant wow, she saw that totally different than I did. And then all of a sudden we realized we're together for a reason. And if we leverage this really well, it is going to really serve us better than most people who don't understand. A lot of businesses fail because they don't recognize the polarities that exist within.
Yeah, they can't transcend
it. No, they can't. And you have to be constantly aware. And I think too, it's about, for me, it was, to your point too, with your friends, like letting go of your preference a little bit more, right? Like this isn't about right and wrong, right? This is just, it's a preference that I've learned to have. It doesn't mean I have to hold it and hang on to it, right? I can let go of that because I recognize that there's importance in both, right? And there's benefits in both. So it's really kind of letting go a lot, I think. For me, it has been.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't understand the other perspective or that other value. It's just I haven't lived in it, right? It's not innate always to me.
Yeah. Well, and you guys are so clear on your shared purpose that when you keep that as your North Star, you can find a way to harmonize these opposites and leverage them so that you actually get the best out of both and you achieve that North Star, your shared purpose. Love that.
Yeah. Well, and I think there was something too that I read in the book that you said, and it was really about, people who when you have this polarity going back to the family mindset, business mindset, that it's a false choice to say family first. Yeah. Because it can't be just that, right? And we've even had that friendship first, right? But we have you can't win that game. So it's really both of us kind of coming to that understanding, even though we know polarity. So you're always learning and always growing and always evolving your understanding. But you just got to kind of stop and think about that, right? That can't be. You want to honor that and get everything out of that, but you also have to give attention to the business aspects and to have that business mindset to drive both, not just one.
Yeah. Well, there's a common polarity in marriages, and maybe for the listeners who aren't as familiar with polarity thinking in general, most of them will probably recognize this one, and that is spend and save, right? It's really common in a marriage for one person to have a preference for spending and one to have a preference for saving. And that can create a lot of tension in a marriage until it's framed as a polarity. And so that's your listeners. This is your inspiration to go read Polarity Intelligence and learn how to actually use both and thinking to transcend the strife in a marriage.
Yeah.
That's a great example.
So the other thing we wanted to touch on, Cathy, was that we've worked with leaders on their succession plans as well as their legacy planning, and it seems like succession planning would be really important to stakeholders in a family business and would be part of the plan when it comes to family business. What are some of the key learnings on succession planning in family businesses and the polarities to leverage? What's been your experience with that?
Well, my first experience is quite shocking in that the majority of family businesses that I've heard about, I've worked with, and it's kind of notoriously famous, do not have succession plans in place. Some are really thoughtful about it, but the vast majority are just not prepared. I wrote about it in my book. A lot of times around 60 as the leader of the business, I think we should, work on a succession plan and let's start transitioning and I'm going to retire at 65. And then by 65, I think about 5 years from now, I think I'm going to retire. And then at 70, I think maybe at 75, I think I'll retire. So there's like this perpetual kicking of the can on when the leader is ready to step out, which can cause huge problems within the family business. Shockingly, most family businesses don't even have an emergency succession plan. And every business should have an emergency succession plan. And so my counsel in the book is work on an emergency plan today, and then put a plan in place for when you're actually going to design a more thoughtful and intentional succession plan, because it takes a while. Succession in a family business isn't a baton pass. It's actually a transition over a period of time, and it needs the appropriate amount of time. And the rising generation needs the opportunity to develop as a leader and take on more and more responsibilities over time, in order for the transition really to be smooth for all the stakeholders involved. In addition to that, succession planning is often as much about ownership succession as it is about leadership succession. And those can happen concurrently, and they don't necessarily happen concurrently, which is another strange nuance and difference about leadership in a family business. It can impact estate planning, because families are interdependent. And when you have decisions about ownership that are being negotiated, it can have ripple effects within the whole system, whether you're an owner in the business, not an owner in a business, connected by family, connected by marriage. It all kind of plays a role. And so the polarities that really come alive for me, for the most part, in succession, I talk a lot about sooner and later in the family business. Sometimes it can be too soon, and sometimes it can be too late. And it's unfortunately more often than it needs to be too soon or too late. Too soon often happens when there's a sudden death, and that's where emergency succession planning can be so important. And too late when the owner just can't let go. And it's interesting because I look at it from that owner's lens, and I think to myself, well, she doesn't want to let go. She's not going to let go. It's her prerogative. She can do whatever she wants. And yet she sets up the next generation for disaster when she doesn't do it. And if she's only focused on her own needs, then she's doing exactly what she wants. If she actually cares about what happens upon her death to the business, to her descendants, then putting some thought into a proper plan can be really helpful. For the rising generation, it's often a tension between urgent and patient. The rising generation, most of the ones that I work with, the ones who come to leadership coaching, they're thoroughbreds pawing at the ground, desperate for their opportunity to step into a leadership role, right? So they're coming from a place of urgency, and even when they're 28 years old, they want the opportunity. And some of these people are just amazingly strong leaders already. And sometimes it is an exercise in patience, and knowing that there's still more to learn. It's not just leadership is not just a cognitive experience. It's a human development experience, at least in my opinion. And it takes time, for wisdom to come online. I mean, you can be really smart, but there's a difference between being smart and wise. And I think really the complexity required of adaptive leadership in a family business really benefits from people who are coming from a wise lens more than a smart lens. Tradition and innovation, right? The current generation, well, we've always done it this way. Why would we change? We're perfectly fine. And the new rising generation says, are you kidding me? If we don't introduce computers, we are going to, right? And maybe now it's, if we don't bring AI in,
Exactly.
And so there's an inherent tension between generations, quite often between tradition and innovation. Then there's a question about merit and inherit. I've got this great business. Do I have my children buy it from me, or do I gift it to them according to the tax regulations, et cetera, et cetera? And that's another interesting tension, especially when you have some children who want to own the business and some who don't. Which then gets you into an equal or equitable conversation, or what's often called equal fair. Is fair equal? Is equal fair? Really complex, challenging questions that don't have easy answers. Welcome to polarity thinking. It's not,
Yeah,
these aren't
exactly,
easy, right?
right?
These are not easy questions.
No,
Yeah.
they're not.
Yeah.
They're not easy tensions to sit in.
No.
You
And
know,
the challenge
which
is,
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. It's fine.
You're right. They're not easy to sit in and they don't go away.
Yeah, exactly. They're never going away. So back to the rising generation and the wisdom, right? It is also about sitting and learning about those tensions, because the best way to gain that wisdom is to learn how this is showing up in your family, in this business, and what dynamics have to be navigated and leveraged within those tensions, right? Yeah. And because it is so complex. And that's a part of stepping into being a good leader, I would think, in a family owned and operated business, right, is that ability to grasp these polarities and then to understand exactly how they're showing up in your business, because they can show up differently in different businesses, right? Depending on the family dynamics, I would assume.
Totally. And I love that you brought that in, because this either or thinking that happens in our educational system, and it's how we think problems are supposed to be solved, and we don't really know that we're in a far more complex dynamic until it kind of catches us by surprise. And I think the discipline of learning to use polarity thinking is an exercise that you can use to actually build your wisdom capacity, because you are forced to hold two opposing truths together at the same time. And that's not easy. Our brains aren't wired for that. Our educational system does not support that. And the simple practice of going through polarity thinking as a discipline helps your brain and your body really hold these opposing truths simultaneously, so that you can function.
Right. Well, and I think the ability to differentiate between a conflict, right, that is just conflict or opposing perspectives without an interdependent relationship, and then those that do have an interdependent relationship is essential, right, to the development of that wisdom. And then, of course, from our perspective, all of this is grounded in healthy relationships and the ability to sit in meaningful dialogue and have deeper, more meaningful conversations about what you're experiencing and what's contributing to it, and those lived experiences that we've had and how we're bringing those in to this, into the family, into the business part of the family. And just understanding that and really sitting in that, but you have to have that foundation of healthy relationship, and without that, you're going to have a struggle to sit in that tension and to leverage these, I think, right?
Yeah, you said it incredibly well, and it's hard because families are hard.
Yeah, they can be. They really can be. Well, the other thing that you also have in your book, and I think on your website as well, is the Family Business Polarity Assessment, which we just love the ability to assess how we're living these. So tell our listeners a little bit about what they'll learn with that assessment if they were to use that assessment. What polarities are you actually assessing in that particular assessment?
Well, first, I want to thank Barry Johnson and Cliff Kaiser, who created Polarity Partnerships, and it's their technology that they have generously made available to me as one of their partners. And it's a really simple assessment that assesses 4 different polarities that are very common in a family business. The first one is plain old family mindset, business mindset. How well are you leveraging the tension between these two mindsets? The second one, which is very common in a family business, is avoiding conflict and tolerating conflict. And that one, so many of the businesses that I worked, many of them are in the Midwest, are so conflict avoidant that they're often in the overuse of avoiding conflict. Invest and harvest is a big one. When a family business generates annual profits, the age-old question is, how much do we invest back into the business and how much do we harvest for the family? And depending on whether you're an owner, whether you're an employee, whether you're a part of the family, your perspective on that answer really differs because you have a different point of view. The business means something different to you if you're in any one of those ownership, employment, or family domains. And so it's a complex question that's well suited to polarity thinking. And then the last one is one that actually is really important and personal to me, and that's the tension between privileges and responsibilities. And this one's really tender for me because until I realized that privileges and responsibilities are a polarity, I operated in the overuse of responsibility, and I couldn't see it. I was so scared of looking like I was going to be in the overuse of privileges that I was really responsible and overfunctioned for my family, my siblings, and my parents. I mean, I just took on all the responsibility that I could, thinking it was the right way to be. And I kept on thinking, well, what's wrong with being responsible? And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, well, no wonder I'm so tired. No wonder I'm burned out and cranky all the time. And I think of privileges and responsibilities very similar in a similar way to the way I hold challenge and support as a leadership polarity. If I'm going to challenge the heck out of an employee, I'm going to give them a heck of a lot of support to help them succeed. And I think they pair really well together. So if someone's going to take a lot of privilege, I'd like them to take some responsibility. If they're going to take on a lot of responsibility, enjoy some privilege. And then at the low end, if you're not going to take on a lot of responsibility, then don't take a lot of privilege. And if you're going to take on a little bit of privilege, take on a little bit of responsibility. So I think they kind of go well together, like, red wine and dark chocolate.
Yeah. There we go. Wow. All right. Well, that's great. That's great. And then they'll be able to really kind of see how they're what they're living and experiencing through the assessment, so they can kind of get a sense of where they're sitting in these four polarities. Now, do you encourage them to do that, like as an individual, to see, like, if they're the leader of the organization, and then do you do assessments with family-owned businesses to see what everybody's perspective is? Because when you take it, it's your perspective.
That's exactly
as
right.
An individual, right? Yeah. It may be your reality, but might not be somebody else's reality.
Well, yes, that's very true. And not only that, I wrote the assessments. And so in the ideal world, the family's actually crafting their own assessments because they're defining the upsides and the overuses of each of the poles. I put based on my, lived experience as a member of a family and then 11 plus years working with families, I put together what I think the really common ones are, but I think it's ideal when each family creates their own. So the entry point's often one person who's frustrated and wants to get an idea of how well they're doing as a family business. And then that can spread. And they say, you know what, I want to see what you think. How are your answers? How do they differ from my answers? And then you can get the whole family. It's actually a great consulting project to work with an entire family and have everyone's map done at the same time. And you look at it all, and then you have the conversations. That's an entry point for a really rich conversation. And then to take it to the next level, I list a bunch of resources in the debrief guide for people who are trained in the polarity partnerships methodology, and they can actually support a family to construct and assess their own polarity maps. And it may not be the four that I mentioned. There may be other polarities that they're interested in exploring as well, because as we know, there are myriad polarities in family business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it's a really great starting point with the four kind of core ones that you've seen most frequently, and it gives somebody just a snapshot view of their current reality at the moment and what they're experiencing and living on a
understanding
day-to-day basis.
How it works and the
that's
infinity
great.
loop and all the other stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, what a great conversation. We could just sit here all day and talk about polarities, but we can't, unfortunately. So we're going to move on to our true questions. Cathy, are you ready?
I'm
Here
excited.
we go with the two questions, and you'll be fine. Don't worry. So I'm going to ask the first one, then Michelle will follow up with the second one. So the first is, what's your guilty pleasure TV show or movie?
Oh, my husband got me into Below Deck. It is just ridiculous. But what's really,
It
is, you've seen it too. Good. What's so interesting is we sit there and we assess the leadership skills of the captain, the bosun, the head of the interior, whatever he or she's called, I forgot. But we sit there and we analyze the leadership styles throughout as all the drama is playing itself out. So it's mostly a guilty pleasure, but we actually bring some leadership assessment. We sit there and, I can't believe that captain just said that. And well, I think this captain's better than that captain. And
good for you.
I
good
love
for
it.
you.
That's great. That's great. Okay, here's your second one. What do you think is the most underrated spot in San Antonio that only locals know about, and why do you love it?
Ooh. I'm going to go with Government Canyon, which is a natural hike facility that's a good 25 minutes away from downtown San Antonio. But it is a beautiful, beautiful place. You can actually see original dinosaur prints at Government Canyon. And there are some paths where you can take your dog, and there are some paths where you can't take your dog. And so it's a really special, beautiful outdoor space that not many people know about. You have to actually buy a ticket to go for $6 whole, I think.
Well, I've been to San Antonio many times, and I've never heard of it.
No, me either.
Yeah.
Government Canyon.
Government Canyon.
Right. Well,
very good.
Yeah.
it's not secret no more.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, well, Cathy, it's been so wonderful. We were looking so forward to this. I think when you can talk to someone else that has really studied polarities and have applied it to a very specific sector, there's just so much richness in it. And you've made us think a lot about our business again. And we know that there's going to be a lot of value for our listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, it was just a fabulous conversation. Thank you so much. I think what I appreciated about your book and our conversation today is that most people don't have a clue these things are happening inside a family-owned business, right? Whether you're in the business, not in the business, whether you're an employee. Like, I think even just for employees to understand the complexity that families have to manage when they're running a business. It doesn't matter what role, even if you're not in the leadership team, just being a part of working in a company, a business that's owned by a family. There's just a lot of dynamic. It's complex. It's not easy. It's not, it's it takes a lot of conscious choice making and leveraging of these polarities, right? To move through that complexity. And I think you just really opened that wide open. Like, I hadn't really thought about all the different polarities that were present. So thank you so much for bringing this, because I'm sure it's going to be very helpful for people.
I hope so. And thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, if I had picked a different subtitle, I would have written "What I Wish Everyone Knew About Family Business."
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much. Sorry.
Any closing remarks for our listeners, Cathy, before we go? Other than what you would name your book?
I think the closing thought that I have is that it can be a complex dynamic working in a family business, and it can be a spectacular experience at the same time. I mean, it can really, I talk a lot about what makes it hard, and I don't think I talk enough about what makes it so magical and special and heartwarming and profound for a family. So they're just eyes wide open. It's complex and challenging, and polarity thinking will help make it more tolerable as you're dealing with the harder parts in service to the great parts of working in a family business, which are pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really wonderful. And thank you to all of our listeners out there. We appreciate you so much. And, we know that you gained as much of this conversation as we did. And we encourage you to share it with others. And if you know anyone in a family business, pass this one along. And subscribe to our podcasts. And if you like watching us on video, you can follow us on Missing Logic's YouTube channel. And yeah, we just ask that you continue to share it, because the more people listen to it, the more people understand polarities and polarity intelligence. So until next time, stay safe and stay healthy.